Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Counseling, a podcast exploring therapeutic lessons we can glean from the works of our favorite author, Brandon Sanderson. I'm Joseph, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified therapeutic game master.
I'm Danielle, a board-certified behavior analyst and geek therapy certified.
I'm Garrett. I am also a board-certified behavior analyst and also geek therapy certified.
Awesome. So we want to start off the Cosmere Counseling podcast by really just quickly introducing what the show is about, who we are, and what you can expect from the podcast series. We're super excited because we have been planning for this for a while. Spoiler warning, we're going to be talking about the Stormlight Order oaths from book 1 to 4, including the novellas and any words of Brandon's. But we're not going to be including anything from Winds and Truth just yet because it just came out and we're so excited to be reading that.
Yep. So don't spoil it in the comments either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no Wind and Truth yet. Well, we thought we'd start by telling everybody kind of where Cosmere Counseling began. And I think it really started when all of us became Cosmere fans. We all Brandon's just great at character writing, and his characters are so real, and their experiences are so real.
Yeah.
That as professional therapists, we're always finding ourselves just stopping and geeking out and finding all of those little scientific principles in the story.
Right. I think
Absolutely.
Most of our conversation when we've been listening to the audiobook when we're driving is talking about, this is something that I was working on with my clients, or this is something that I just learned.
Yeah, Joseph and I are married, so we have these conversations together, and we're geeks about therapy, and we're geeks about Brandon Sanderson, so it works. Garrett, I was wondering, you told me you have similar experiences. Do you talk to somebody about it, or?
Yeah, I do. Usually it's with my dad or my brother. I'm going to talk to my wife, Kayla, about it once she gets further along, but she's still in Way of Kings, so she's got a lot of ground to cover. So, but yeah, we talk about, usually it's more the storyline with my dad and my brother, and then, let's see, with the principles, I do still talk with my wife about it. I just have to kind of avoid what's going on in the story. So I might say something like, there's this character that's struggling with something like depression, and it's cool to see how he goes through this little journey. So that's how I usually talk to people about it.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've been having Cosmere Counseling discussions for a long time. Mm-hmm. What brought it into the public sphere was actually last year, the 2023 Dragonsteel speech, Brandon's speech at the release of Defiant. He gives this speech about one of the key pieces of it. He talks about stories being a way for us to exercise emotional muscles, are some of the words he uses. But just talking about how as you go through a story, you're able to learn from experiences that you're not actually having, and meet and get to know people and personalities and ways of living that you're not actually experiencing, but still learn from those. And Joseph and I were sitting in that. It wasn't a panel. It was a release party.
It was the release party.
We're there with thousands of people.
Right. Brandon is like on the stage talking, and yeah.
Be there with you.
We're just completely geeking out because we're like, this is what we do in therapy. We love to incorporate stories into our clients' therapy, and our favorite author is validating what we do. And then Joseph turns to me and says, we should do a panel next year.
Mm.
It's the Stormlight year.
Yep.
We read all the books and do it. And I was like, yes. And then within a week, he came up with the Cosmere Counseling name, which is awesome. And within 2 months, we had some material ready, and we were like, this is too much for just a panel. Let's do a podcast too.
Right. But we were going to just do a panel to kind of kickstart this whole project. But now that we aren't at the we aren't able to do the panel, we're here recording on day 2 of Dragonsteel.
Yeah. So we got accepted to do the panel, and we were all set to do the panel, but we had some things that got us stuck out of the country. So that's when Garrett got involved. I was like, hey, Garrett, I need someone to go do this panel for me. And he was like, well, this is cool. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? But anyway, it didn't work out. We're going to do the podcast. We'll do panels in the future.
Yep.
So I guess with that, I want to voice some of our disclaimers, and we won't tell you this every time. It'll just be in the show notes. So for the first episode, from the story we just explained, this is all fan created. We're just geeking out just like the rest of you. No affiliation with Dragonsteel. We're also just sharing our personal opinions from our training and our experience. Our opinions don't reflect the opinions or intentions of our field as a whole, and definitely don't reflect the opinions of Brandon Sanderson or his characters.
Right. Okay. Why do we start with Stormlight? Is because, like what Danielle just said, this year was the big Stormlight year, and this is the year that we have planned a panel for. So we have been working our way through the Stormlight Archive again to remind ourselves about the stories leading up to Wind and Truth. And so we are going to start Cosmere Counseling pretty much focused with Stormlight first, but then we do have plans, and we do hope that we can expand to other books and other Cosmere characters and their stories once we get through the Stormlight content.
If we ever get through Stormlight content.
Right.
The next lots of episodes will be Stormlight.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of topics that we might cover are some of the ideas that you can kind of expect that you might see in the future are something like doing a deep dive into the Order's oaths and how they're connected to certain therapeutic principles, or like talking about integrity and confidence when we look at Adolin and his arc, or looking at overcoming addiction or some of the therapeutic principles on overcoming addiction when we talk about Teft and his stories, and also building team unity with Dalinar and his stories and his experience. So those are just some samples of types of things that we might cover.
We want to hear from you guys, though.
Right.
Some of the platforms have comment functions, and we have an email we'll share at the end.
Right.
You have ideas of things you want us to dig into.
Yeah. We're going to have our email in the show notes. So if you have any topics you would like us to cover, please just reach out to us. Okay. So I think at this point, let's go into introducing ourselves in more detail, so you guys know who we are, what our credentials, what are some of our experiences, and we're going to also talk about our own Radiant Order and how Stormlight has helped us.
Personally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Garrett.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, yep. I'm Garrett. I have been a BCBA since 2022, so I'm still pretty new to the field, but gotten my feet in the water. It's a lot of fun. I love helping other people. And then recently, as you heard, Danielle and Joseph introduced me to this cool geek therapy world, and I'm a nerd. I'm self-proclaimed, so I loved it, dove right into it. Super fun. My interests, I don't know. I've got a lot of the classic nerdy interests. I love Star Wars, even the books. I went and read the Star Wars books, so I'm that much.
How many of those are there?
Oh,
too many to count.
There's way too many. I guess I haven't read all of them. I've read a good amount of them, minus the New Jedi Order series, because there's like 17 in a row, and it is really hard. Star Wars, love it. Wow. Harry Potter, that was the only books I would read in high school. And then I just recently finished reading Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, lots of books. Love the early Nintendo games like Mario Kart Double Dash. I'm still undefeated in my family, much to my father's dismay. So maybe one day he'll beat me. Let's see. As a Brandon Sanderson fan, though, I got into it a bit later. I probably should have gotten into it earlier, but my younger brother got into it first. And as an older sibling, of course, I couldn't like something my younger brother liked. I don't know if you guys have any siblings, but you can't like the thing your younger brother liked.
Yeah,
not at all.
Yeah.
About that.
So he told me about Way of Kings back when it first came out, and I told him it sounded like the dumbest book ever, and I was never going to read it. And Mistborn sounded lame.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was, I had to get through some stuff. Apparently, I just was not in the right place. But then when I got to college, I realized I could like the things that my brother liked. So I started off with Steelheart just to wet my feet in Brandon Sanderson, and then moved up to Mistborn. Mistborn's still probably my favorite series. Those first 3 books are amazing. And then I finally dove into Stormlight. And at first, I needed like a good 2-month break after I finished one of the books. But now I can read them over and over as my reread of all the books right before Wind and Truth can testify. I've gotten through all 4 in the last 4 months. So,
oh my god.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's been a marathon read, let me tell you. It's been so fun. I've been getting so into it, tearing up at the end of Rhythm of War, like I always do. It always gets me.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Oh,
Yeah. And we
anyways,
will be talking about some of those moments.
Yes, we will. I've got so much to say. I could say it all right now, but I don't want to spoil the show. So, the first time I went through the what is it called? Stormlight Archive. There we go. The first time I went through Stormlight Archive, my brother told us that there was this cool quiz. I'm sure you've all heard of it, the find out your order of radiant. And so we took it and I started grading myself. And I like to be kind of a unique person. I don't always want to get the same thing as everyone else. And half my family had already gotten Windrunner. So I was really Windrunner's great. I just wanted something different because I wanted to be different. It's one of my personal things. And I ended up getting Bondsmith, which was super exciting for me because I've always loved Dalinar. I love how unique he is and how, I don't know, he's a great leader. He's got a great character arc and lots of things that we will get into in future episodes. For those of you who may not know, first of all, you probably want to pause now because there's going to be lots of spoilers, but Bondsmiths are all about uniting. What I like about it is they want to unite others, help them get to where they want to go. A big part of Dalinar is being that leader, not necessarily the conqueror that he was at the beginning of his life, but being that kind leader that people could look to and expect good, solid help without having to worry about getting run over by the Alethi. So that's something I've really identified with. I'm the oldest in my family. I am the oldest of most of my cousins on one of my sides, so I have had a lot of experience in leadership, whether in my personal life and my work life and with my friends. I'm usually the shoulder people go to and the person people look to in high school so finding a good example to set has really been something that has been a big part of my life. And I really like the way that Dalinar does that as he is progressing through his oath as a bondsmith, and he finds ways to bring people together in a positive light instead of the what is the word I'm looking for? Oh, scary, but that's not the word I'm going for. The scary dictator that he was, the conquistador.
Right.
Yeah, I think you guys know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, who torched an entire city. Oof.
Oh yeah.
You went straight there, Joseph.
Yeah.
You went all the way down.
Yeah. I mean, that is the worst thing he has ever done.
Oh, it's brutal. His whole animal speech gives me chills. But then he has great speech later.
Like we're trying to learn from these characters, but that is not one of the things we should learn from Dalinar. Like,
right. You can always have a great non-example.
Learn a lot from it. Well, I'm interested, Garrett, in what kind of things you learn when you read Wind and Truth from Navani working through the oaths.
What?
Oh yeah,
Wind and Truth?
Isn't that the next one? That's the name of the one that just came out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's gonna have to say some Bondsmith oaths.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
I'm not spoiling anything that wasn't in Rhythm of War.
Okay, I was like, wait, what?
Psych, I read it all last night.
Didn't you already have the books?
No. Well, the audiobook's already on our phones. We just are refusing to touch it until we finish our Rhythm of War read through because you were faster than us.
I still have 100 pages to go in Rhythm of War, full disclosure. But they will be done by the time my book arrives since it's at my in-laws' house. Anyways, it'll be super interesting to hear because there's going to be a lot of Bondsmith stuff in Wind and Truth from what I can tell. That's the whole point of going to Shinovar, if I remember right, is to learn about the Bondsmiths.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, anyways, so how Stormlight has helped me in my life is I think it's a wonderful, safe fantasy world to help me experience emotions I can relate to. I get really into any book I read or any TV show I watch. I can empathize a lot with the characters. Even if I haven't really gone through, I don't know, I feel like it's one of my talents that I can understand what someone might be going through once I get enough context clues. Something I really like about Stormlight too is it gives example of ordinary people trying to be better. There's a lot of awesome real people in the world, whether they're religious figures, historical figures. There's tons of great people. Sometimes just going through my daily life, it's hard to feel like I can measure up to those amazing stories of people like Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, people like that that just give it their all, and it seems like they never did anything wrong. And then I get to read these books where you see Kaladin or Dalinar, where they take 2 steps forward and then they take 1 step back. I still get mad at Kaladin in Words of Radiance every single time when he ruins the challenge with Sadeas. It still gives me, I'll listen to it. I'll say, no, Kaladin, stop. And every time he does it, for some strange reason. So it's nice to have those role models, those people, those fictional characters where they make it to a great spot and become these amazing people, but you get to see their mistakes and you get to see that it's okay to make mistakes because you're still going to make it to a good place. If you're going towards your oaths, you're trying to be that bondsmith or that windrunner. So that is how it helps me the most. Yeah, I really like Dalinar's little visit to Thaylen City. This is one of the recent stories that's helped me. When he goes to Thaylen City and he does that big show and he beats, what's her name? What's the queen's name? Fen?
Fen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He challenges Queen Fen's son to a duel, and then he lets himself get stabbed and it doesn't hurt him. And then he realizes that's not how it should feel when a radiant should come. And they move towards like giving relief and things like that. And so it's just a cool little contrast of you could be a scary leader, or with your kids, you can have a bunch of punishment and be yelling and scary, or you can go on the side of nurturing and loving and being that respected leader. So that's how Stormlight helps me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And
no problem.
It is so awesome to be able to hear you talk about how the bondsmith and how Stormlight has really impacted you, because Stormlight definitely had made a similar impact to me as well. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm Joseph. I've been practicing as a marriage and family therapist since 2021. I'm also a certified therapeutic game master since 2023. My experience in the mental health fields are I often work with families, especially with parents and kids. I've also worked with couples and also individuals on trauma recovery, improving their relationship, managing their mental health struggles, and so on and so forth. Something really fun last year is I got to learn and how to use tabletop role-playing games as a therapeutic tool. And it has been fun to incorporate more geek culture into therapy that I do with my clients. And I found it to be really helpful because my clients, they can often relate to those characters and see, okay, it gives them some ideas about how they can overcome their struggles as well.
As when we were listening to Brandon's speech, we're like, we just started doing all of these great tabletop role playing therapy groups.
Yeah, it's about the same time.
And then we're seeing how great it is for our clients, and then Brandon gets up there and is like, stories exercise your emotional muscles, and we're like, we know.
Yeah. As far as fandom interest goes, the Harry Potter was my jam when I was a kid. That is every Halloween I want to dress up as a Hogwarts student. And I watched I read the books more times than I can count, and I also watched the movies over and over again when I was a kid. I also rewatched Lord of the Rings multiple times, and if you play those soundtracks to me, I can pinpoint which scene that soundtrack plays. That is how much I've rewatched those movies. But also just the general geek fandom stuff: Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Avatar, The Last Airbender. I also read a lot of Japanese manga growing up in Taiwan. So I also love video games with great stories, and I love great stories with great characters. And I got roped into the Cosmere actually by a buddy of mine that is, while I was in university, we worked for hours as groundskeepers. And one time he was listening to Mistborn and on the speaker because his headphone had died. So I started listening along with him, and it piqued my interest. So I asked him, "What are you listening?" And the rest is history. And so,
Well, so then you brought it home to me.
right,
And I don't think you even said anything. I think you just started playing it. And I'm trying to think of how to say this without spoiling Mistborn, but that first chapter does not sound like a book I would normally read. I'm like, what are you listening to?
right,
Yeah, then the rest is history, right?
yeah. So, my good man Jesse, if you're listening, thank you for introducing me to the Cosmere. Now, when I took the quiz, I belong to the Order of Edge Dancer, and their philosophy is very much about remembering the ordinary people, which aligns with very much why I got into therapy, is being that witness to my clients' stories and being that intimate part of their life in assisting them and really seeing who they are and being able to be that support for them in reaching and planning and figuring out how to get to a place where they want to be. And that's also another reason why I specialize in trauma recovery, actually. And I love doing trauma healing with my clients. It's one of the most amazing things to see how their wounds heal and how they are able to overcome the scary scars of their life and come out victorious, come out stronger, and being at a place where they didn't believe they could be at. And those are some of the most amazing experiences that I've had as a clinician. And also just I think as an edge dancer and when I was in high school, I already had some of these traits coming out because I will often notice those that don't talk or don't talk with other kids as much, or they sit alone in school or in the mess hall or in the hallway. Since I was in high school, I will often go and chat with them and get to know them. Um, Providing assistance to those who need it just really brings a lot, like it holds a lot of meaning to me. And one of the reason I didn't want to get a PhD, even though I'm a Ravenclaw, is because I want to be working with people more. I don't want to be doing research. I want to be with the people, face to face, really interacting with them. And
That's definitely your edge dancer.
I also will be the perfect partner in crime with Lyft because I love food. I love good food. So, Stormlight has really been an inspiration for me to do better. To remind myself that journey before destination, and I can continue to grow and continue to be better. Reading through the Stormlight Archive, it had also pushed me to ponder and pay more attention to the details of life, like in my life. And oftentimes the stories and the characters' experiences are also a source of strength for me, especially well, actually I have a fun little story about this being a source of strength. So I was in basic training for my mandatory military service, and we had to run 3,000 kilometers every morning. And at one point there is an uphill, and that is the most brutal part of the run. And the first time I ran it, it was horrible. My legs were hurting. I was out of breath and just, yeah, it was horrible. But on the second day, I started to think. I thought to myself, let me try this thing. And so I did. What I did is when we got to the hill, so we had to run 3 lapses, and so up the hill 3 times. Every time I get to the hill, I would slow down a little bit, and then I will recite life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination, and I will just charge up that hill. It
That's
sounds
amazing.
so cheesy and cringy, but that's what I did in my head. And sometimes I utter out, under my breath. But every time I do that, I get this burst of just energy. I don't know where I got it from, but I always charge up that hill.
Did you have some glowing spheres in your pocket filled with stormlight? Maybe breathing
Well,
it
no, I
in?
actually
We just hit something.
no, but I would sometimes I would imagine every breath I take is I'm breathing in stormlight. I would imagine that in my head, and I always charge up that hill. And I will get tired, after I do that. But just have being able to do that, that was just a very very cool experience. How this how the fandom and how like Stormlight has been a source of strength for me.
Which
Right.
it touches on a psychological principle, like the positive visualizations.
Right, right,
When you are combining those with something that's difficult, rather than if you were complaining the whole way up the hill,
right.
like that increases your motivation and your ability to do it.
Right, and unlocks some of that potential that we all have. And so yeah, that's a fun recent story. And I think the last thing that Stormlight really helps me is it really taught me to focus on what truly matters. That those are the reason why I love Stormlight Archive for myself. Danielle.
Okay, yeah. So my introduction, also a millennial geek like these two. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars. I love it all. My two biggest things, though, other than the Cosmere, are probably tabletop RPGs and cosplay. I just really love dressing up and delving into new worlds. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons. Started when I was 8 years old and started DMing in high school, and then branched off to some other TTRPGs and cosplaying forever too. I just love it. So those are my big geek things. As far as my experience in the field, I've been working in the mental health field since 2017 as a behavior analyst since 2019. Got the geek therapy certification and a lot of trainings in using narratives from popular media and role-playing games and therapy. We like to think of ourselves like Hoyd with Kaladin and Shallan, where we can give a story or have them bring a story that resonates with them and find and create answers for your own life from your stories. And I'm excited to do more of that on this podcast. Most of my experience is with adolescents and parents, but I have done some work with adults and kids. I usually work with groups. Lately, I work with a lot of other therapists too, doing a lot of training and supervision activities. I mostly specialize in goal setting and changing habits. I like to promote resilience and flexibility and people being able to set their own course for their life. Kind of why I focus in those areas and why they're so important to me actually relates a lot to my order and ideals. I'm really passionate that there is an individualized best path for everybody to be able to thrive. Like no matter who you are, there are routines and habits that if you can incorporate them into your life can get you to a place of thriving, despite difficult circumstances or despite it not being the same path that your mom wanted you to take or your friend is taking. So I am a windrunner. I heard that dig earlier, Garrett.
There's nothing wrong with windrunners. It's a weird quirk of mine.
It's good. The world has a lot of windrunners, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's the protecting others kind of. I feel like it's more about protecting people's freedoms for me to do and be what they want and to have independence and have the skills and opportunities to pursue what they want. I want everybody to, if you're just missing that one thing to be able to thrive, we want to find that in therapy. And I'm just passionate that people can have and find the things that work for them. So I thought with how Stormlight helped me in my life, I would get a little bit into my ideals because I've got quite a few more that are in the books that we're referencing here than you guys do. The third ideal, which for Kaladin was, I will protect even those I hate. For Teft, it was, I will protect even those I hate also, but even if it's myself.
Right.
And I think, did Lopin swear it?
He said journey before pancakes, and then like the Stormfather said those words are accepted.
Yeah.
No, he also had one in Dawnshard where he would protect others from himself because of his jokes.
Which one was the third ideal?
I don't know.
I can't remember if that was the third ideal. I just remember he does swear one in Dawnshard, and it's like it has something to do with because of his jokes. Yeah.
I gotta delve more into that and learn from Lopin.
Yeah,
what is this pancakes thing?
Right. We need to reread. We need to reread those books.
Mm-hmm. So for me, at least, if it has to do with something, I don't know about pancakes, but if it has to do something with hatred, I think for me it would be like protect even in situations I hate. Because I've got my passion. I want, people to have their freedoms and their opportunities and be taken care of. But when those logistics are just overwhelming or unfair, or there's just extra baggage that I don't think should be there, and like sometimes I struggle to always approach that ideal if there's so many other systemic issues that aren't supporting that goal. So it's helpful for me to watch the Windrunners staying true to their values and supporting others, even in situations where the going gets tough, or if it's not what they thought it would be like or should be like. I think I've probably sworn this ideal, but it's kind of, you always need the reminders, and my friend's probably like, get yourself together sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the fourth Windrunner ideal, which I think we've only heard Kaladin.
His Teft was robbed.
I don't remember what his was, but did you have it, Garrett?
No, I just said because Teft was robbed.
Oh,
he was so close.
You guys are bringing up the dark things in the first episode.
I mean, it is through those really dark moments that we really learn.
Yeah,
that we really find out what is important to us, and which we'll be talking about that in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think my fourth ideal would sound similar to Kaladin's. Just accepting that you can't be there for everyone all the time. Oh, I accept that I can't protect everyone is how he worded it, or something like that. I have not sworn that ideal, and I am 100% working on that right now. Like, especially in the last year, that's been a huge. It's hard for me to not be able to be there for everyone all the time. I feel like I need to, I love people and I want to help them and be there for them, but there's only 24 hours in a day, and sometimes you don't live next to each other, and sometimes you're busy, and sometimes they have things they need to do on their own, and even if you were there, you wouldn't be helpful. And a lot of what Kaladin learns in Rhythm of War, actually, like reading through that book is so therapeutic for me, because I can watch his experience and completely relate that, seeing him struggle with that same problem, but then also recognizing that the fourth ideal is a big deal.
Yeah.
And being able to get to that point where you can really say it's okay that I can't be there for everyone actually makes you a stronger Windrunner, not a weaker one.
Right.
And I haven't fully accepted that yet, but
you're working on it.
I'm excited to do so. I write Windrunner on the sides of all of my therapy notes for myself. It's definitely something I'm often relating to. So,
can I ask you a question, Windrunner Danielle?
Yes.
Have you ever found yourself in situations where you want to help someone and you know how to help someone, you know what's going to help them, and they choose not to accept your help? How does that factor into you and your ideals?
I don't know if all Windrunners are this way, but I think I'm pretty smart, and I think my ideas are pretty great. And if I give you an idea and then you don't follow it, it's like,
well, what the heck?
Like just with Kaladin and Rock, when Rock leaves to go to the Horneater Peaks and face his whatever the result is of him,
the consequences,
killing Amaran.
Right? The consequences of him taking up weapons.
Right, and Kaladin's like, well, you could stay here. You could be a Windrunner. You could be with us. Like, this will be good for you. Being able to recognize, well, what's best for Rock in his situation isn't always what I said. I think I'm pretty passionate that everybody has their own path. So I don't think I'd get into it as much as Kaladin does there. But I definitely think sometimes if they're struggling with something and I'm like, oh, well, this will help because I'm a scientist and I know in the research this helps. And then like they don't do it. I'm like, but it would help.
Right.
So yeah, I'd have to think about that more, but I definitely think there's a little bit of both. Like I'm pretty passionate that people don't have to do what I say, but also science.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for your candid honesty, really, because those are sometimes personal topics are going to come up. We will be we'll be monitoring how much we share and what's appropriate and what's not. And these stories, the reason why they reach us is because they're deeply personal. And I think that's one of the powers that comes from Brandon's work. And because there are just things that only we know ourselves, and we see it on this on paper, and we could really relate, feeling like our story have been seen or people understand, and sometimes for some people for the very first time. Now that you have gotten to know us a little bit more, we want you to know that this is something that we are passionate about, and we want to make this a educational and fun podcast, but also something that can resonate with everyone.
Yeah.
So let's segue into as we come into a close. Let's segue into expectations, Garrett.
Yeah, for sure. So we want to keep a pretty consistent structure. It might be a little loose of a structure, but we want to keep it consistent so you know what you're getting from each episode. We want to have a what in each episode, a who in each episode, and a how in each episode. The what is going to be some sort of therapy or psychological principle that we think really fits with what we're talking about in the podcast that week. Whether that be values or it could be, I think we talked about positive visualization with Joseph. Is that what it was called? Yeah. That was a little example of what we could do. When we get into our who section, we're
right.
Yeah, very loose. Yes. When we get into our who section, it's going to be a lot more of the Cosmere and a character or a situation we really think exemplifies that principle that we want to talk about. And then the how is going to have something we can do. We're going to put in some of our personal stories throughout those things. As Joseph said, we'll monitor to make sure that we're keeping it appropriate. But lots of these things that have happened in the Cosmere, they really do affect us and they really do change our lives. So we want to be able to take those lessons and then further change our lives. And hopefully it can be something that you guys can take into your lives too. We always want to leave some sort of action item, some sort of takeaway of something you can do to move forward in your lives. For this one, we've talked a lot about the quiz that we all took. And so we want to invite everyone to go and find Branderson's order quiz and take it and think about what your oaths mean to you. I think it only took me 10, 15 minutes. Is that about right for you two as well? How long the quiz takes?
So.
Yeah. And you can go through, and it's wonderful because it'll give you what you're most like, but it'll also show you the breakdown of all the other orders and what percentage you are of those orders as well. If I have to be completely honest, I think I was just 1% away from being a windrunner. So it was really close for me. But I got Bondsmith. That's what my takeaway was for it. So if you feel like for whatever reason the quiz is not what you were thinking, you didn't get the order you wanted, you can see your percentages and you can see how close you were. And I mean, the results are yours, so you can take with them as you will.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I think it even says in the quiz itself. Like this quiz isn't perfect, and these orders are all completely made up, and these questions in the quiz are all completely made up. Like, take it, and if it's helpful and it gives you, if one of your top couple orders really resonates with you, that's great. If not, go read through all of them and see what really resonates with you. It's
right.
We always want to be careful when we're categorizing ourselves. That categorizing yourself is only helpful when it's helpful.
Right.
If like I'm able to look at this group of windrunners and these shared ideals, and that helps me understand myself more and learn and grow. Like that's great. But if it turns into something where it's like, well, I'm a windrunner and that means I have to be this all the time and I can't also be this, or something that's not helping me in my life, then that's not great. And you don't have to do
Right.
it.
Which we actually will be getting into with some Kaladin's story later on in future episodes.
Ooh.
So
Brandon also is pretty passionate about that. He's like, I'm interested to. I'd like to know how his team convinced him to let them publish this quiz, because he's always very like don't sort into groups. People are too complex. Like,
right.
And I agree with him to an extent. But if it's helpful to another extent, it can be helpful. It can be fun. Just only use it if it's helpful.
Right. And we'll also love we'll love to interact with you. We love to hear feedback, questions. Tell us your ideals. How oaths have helped you, and how Stormlight has affected your life, and also suggestions for us. And this is the first time that we are doing this, so bear with us and grow with us. And if you have any suggestions or topics that you would like us to talk about or look into, please reach out to us using the contact methods linked in the show notes. And the next thing I want to talk about is release schedules. So because we all have we all have full-time jobs, and this is a passion project that we have. So right now we do not have a consistent release schedule. However, we will be having episode 1 ready, that will be published with this one. Future episodes are going to come out when they are ready and when we're able to record. As we hinted at this, but Danielle and I, we live in Taiwan, and Garrett still lives in the U.S. So sometimes scheduling is going to be difficult. So please bear with us, and we want to keep this going because we love Stormlight, and we love this fan, and we love what we do. So we will continue to put out episodes. We just don't know when.
So we just wanted to voice our last disclaimer. Again, these will just be in the show notes in the future. But this podcast is meant to provide education about general therapeutic and scientific principles generally. It's not meant to function as or to replace a professional therapy service. We can't promise that the information we're presenting will be directly applicable to any given situation. And we also won't be offering individual advice on individual situations through the Q&As or the email. And we recommend that if you want some individualized support, to contact your local therapy providers.
Right. Because they will be able to be the most beneficial way for you to achieve the goals that you want. That is the end of our episode today. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have felt inspired to take the next step on your journey. So please share your thoughts, suggestions, experience, and ask a question using the comment function on YouTube, or by emailing us at fantasyframeworkstherapy@gmail.com. We will love to hear from you, and remember to always learn from the journey. We would like to thank Dr. Dave Schramm and Rex Colonis from the Stronger Marriage podcast for their mentoring in getting the podcast started.